So in this video, I will be explaining the changes made to old underscore util.py. And as you can see up here, we have some imports that I've made, quite a number. Uh, I'll explain them in the code. They're quite a number, but I'll explain them in the code and what they do. And then the first thing I'd like to talk about is Gmail underscore label equals to category underscore updates. So what this does is I've initialized a variable here that will be able to tell the scripters that I need you to go to to this label and get your Slack confirmation codes from this label. The name of the label is category underscore updates. Then the next thing that I'm doing here is I'm initializing pygame with this statement here, pygame.mixer.init and pygame.init. So pygame is the package that I'm using to ensure that the script beeps in case there's any problem or in case it doesn't work as expected by the user. Down here, I've also added this code here, which is what I'm going to be using to ensure that the script is handled well, and it's also, the Slack confirmation code is handled well, and also to ensure that the code gets entered into the input area on Slack where it's supposed to be, and the flow keeps on going without any failure. So as you can see here, I've initialized a variable called confirmation underscore code, and this is getting the code from get underscore confirmation code underscore code sorry yes underscore confirmation underscore code underscore from underscore gmail. So this is a function that I'm going to explain also. It's down there what it does, but for now let's just know that confirmation underscore code is being called from this function here. Then I've also initialized confirmation underscore input variable, which gives us an HTML element where the script is supposed to enter the code. And this is the element. So we are waiting for it for a maximum of 10 seconds to be clickable, and then the script will be able to click on it and then enter this confirmation code there. So as you can see, we are sending the confirmation code here, and then in case the script elapses like 10 seconds or more, and then it realizes that it's not going, like things are not going as planned, then I've also added this. Now pygame works here, whereby the script will beep uh, three times, and then it will alert the user that something is wrong or it did not work as expected. And if things go on well, then the script will just continue doing its work. And the next thing that comes once the script has accepted the confirmation code that has been entered here is there's a pop-up that comes on your screen telling you that uh, you should either open Slack app or just cancel. So what I normally do manually is I normally click on escape on my keyboard. So I used PyAutoGUI for this purpose. As you saw up there, I had imported PyAutoGUI, and this is the one that is going to be helping me to click on escape every time maybe I need to do it manually. So this time around, it's not going to be done manually. And then I've also had added an exception down here, and this exception handles everything that might fail all the way from here to down here. So in case anything fails, this exemption will print an error that has occurred, and then as usual, we need to have another beep, like it needs to beep to alert the user that something is wrong. So that is what I've done here, and then. The next thing that happens after you escape the pop-up is there's another message that is left on your screen telling you that you can use Slack in your browser, uh, and there's a link there that you can click. So that is what I've added here. So browser link, we are waiting for it for 10 seconds to be clickable, and then after that, the script should be able to click on it. And then there's an exemption here that if it's not clickable, then we need to have an error shown on the terminal. And then we also need to have a beep. If this is not clicked and then 10 seconds have elapsed, then the script should alert us that there is something that is not going on as planned. So it should beep for 3 consecutive times, and then the user will be able to click on that, and the script will continue working as expected. Then down here, let me just go straight to the this function. The name of the function is get underscore confirmation underscore code underscore from underscore Gmail. As you saw, this is what was being called up there, and without this, what you have up there cannot function, because this is the confirmation code that is needed for the script to enter it into the input area, and then it should be able to continue. But without these, then that won't function. So let me explain what this is. um, the first thing that I can talk about is credentials. And as you can see, credentials is also, as in, I've initialized a variable called credentials, and credentials is also getting the credentials from another function called get underscore gmail underscore credentials. And then down here, I'm using a function, a function from Google API called build. And this function is basically simply, I'm just using it to create Google API service point. And what is inside the function, we have Gmail, which specifies the API name. In this case, it's the Gmail API, and then we have V1. This is simply the version, um, just the API version. And then when you talk about credentials equals credentials, this is just a parameter that is being used to provide the authentication credentials required to access the API. And then down there we have this code where uh, a label underscore ID is being initialized as a variable. And what this does is it's just getting the Gmail label that I talked about, that is category underscore updates. Right here we need it. And then in that label we need to have a subject filter to filter the subject of the email. As you know, you in one mailbox you have so many emails that have been received, and most of them um, might not match with what maybe a user needs. And in this case, our user is the script. So the script needs Slack confirmation code as the subject, and it also needs this unread. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to ensure that the script gets the correct subject from the mailbox, and that is from the updates category underscore updates label, and also to ensure that it gets them unread. Then down here we have sorry, I've initialized a variable again. I'm calling it a I'm calling it messages. And what this does is this initiates a request to Gmail API to fetch a list of messages. And in this particular case, we need to ensure that there's a criteria that is being used to fetch those messages. And this criteria is user ID. We have a label and then a search query. Um, the outcome of this is to be stored in messages, in the messages variable, which holds a dictionary encompassing details about the obtained messages, including message IDs. We have labels and additional information from the Gmail API. Then down there um, we have an if statement, and what this if statement does is it checks it checks whether the messages variable contains a key named messages. And if the value associated with that key is an empty list, because we need messages, and the messages should be available, not an empty list. And then if the condition is true, then that means there are messages returned from Gmail API. And what the code does is it extracts the ID of the first message from the list of messages, and then it assumes that the messages are stored in a way that the first message is always the one of interest. Like the top message is always the one of interest, and it's also the most recent message. If the list is sorted differently, or you have a specific criterion, then that means you might need to consider changing it to fit that criterion. But for this case, how emails are received determines the most recent message, and that is why this is what I'm using here. Now the next thing here is we have the message id here. So um so when we use the message id here, the script will be able to make subsequent API calls to fetch the full details of the specific message. And then we have some service.users dot messages dot get here. And what this method does is it retrieves the messages with a specific with the specified ID label. So it gets the specific messages which have that ID, and then execute here. This is the method that I'm using to execute the API requests and to ensure that the details of the message are retrieved without any challenges. Now, down here, what we are trying to do here is I'm trying to ensure that once the email has been retrieved, or once the Scala confirmation code has been retrieved from the email subject, then that email should be marked as read. It should be marked as read, so that the next time the script is going through another list of emails, it only picks emails that are unread. And this one will make it easier for it. It will save time, the time that is going to spend trying to retrieve the emails. And then down here we have I don't know, the second last function, and this is the one I was talking about, the one for getting the credentials. And what this does is, the first thing I've done here is I've specified the scopes that I need to have here. Initially, I had read only, and the challenge that I noticed with read only is that you cannot make the changes I've talked about. Like you can't mark an email as read, or an sorry, yeah, you can't mark an email as read. You can't modify the email. The only thing you can do is you can extract the confirmation code, and that is it. So I updated this with modify, and what the scope, what this function does is, so what this does is we are trying to check if there's a file called token.json. If it exists, the script will attempt to load credentials from this file. And then if the credentials are valid, then that means the script should proceed with whatever activities it was doing. And if it's invalid, and this is something that I've experienced, if it's invalid, then that means you'll get an error, whether it's telling you that the script the API has expired, or something is not working as you expect it to work. And then we have the credentials validation, and refresh. So yeah, here credentials validation and refresh. So if the loaded credentials are not valid or have expired, like I've said, then the function should this function should attempt to refresh them using the refresh token if available. And what I normally do here is if the script tells me on the terminal that this token has expired, what I normally do is I always delete the token.json file that is in the root folder and then try to run the script again. This will refresh and create another token, which now is updated, and the script should work as just its normal routine. Then, if there are no credentials or the existing ones have expired and cannot be refreshed, then the function initiates the OAuth 2.0 authorization following authorization flow using this. That is the installed app flow from the provided client secrets file, which is credentials.json. And if the flow requires maybe some user interaction, for example, initial authorization, then it turns to a local server to handle the OAuth 2.0 callback. Now let's talk about the last one, and that is the last one, which is that is extract underscore this function for extract underscore confirmation underscore code from email. And what this does is it goes to the headers. That is now where the subject is. Initially, I was extracting the code from the body, but then I noticed that this is taking so much time. So I changed and updated this to ensure that the script gets the confirmation code from the subject, and it also ensures that the subject has this. It needs to have Slack confirmation code and the full colon in header. The value it should ensure that this is what is. Let me explain this. Yeah, here. So Slack confirmation code like this. Sorry. So like this. So you need to ensure that it picks exactly this. Then after that, the next thing that should be extracted is now the code itself. So that is what I've done there. If there is a match, then it should ensure that that is extracted. Then return that match to the script and give it to feed it to the input area where the Slack confirmation code is normally fed, and then the script should continue working as expected. If that is not available, then the script should raise an exception confirmation code not found in the email header. That is all about the auth underscore util.py, and this is basically more on the Gmail API that I worked on. Thank you.